When my mother passed away, the house felt different. The walls still carried her laughter, the kitchen smelled faintly of the tea she brewed every evening, and her room remained untouched, as if she might walk out at any moment and ask why the lights were still on. That house was more than wood and bricks. It was her heart, and by extension, ours. My sister and I stood together after the funeral, surrounded by condolences and quiet tears. She held my hands and said, "Mom wanted this house to stay in the family. We'll protect it together." In that moment, I believed her completely. Blood felt thicker than law, and love felt stronger than paperwork. A few weeks later, she called me late at night. Her voice trembled as she spoke about the mortgage, the bills, the pressure closing in on her. She said she couldn't lose Mom's house, not after everything. Then she whispered the words that changed my life. "Help me for now. This house is ours. One day, it will be yours too." I didn't ask for contracts or written promises. I didn't think I needed them. She was my sister, so I agreed to pay the mortgage, $4,200 every single month. I told myself it was temporary, a sacrifice made out of love. Months turned into years, and I never missed a payment. I worked overtime, skipped vacations, and drained my savings. I watched friends move forward with their lives while I stood still, convincing myself that I was doing something meaningful. Every transfer I made felt like a quiet prayer to my mother, a promise that her home would remain safe. Whenever I visited, I fixed broken doors, painted faded walls, and repaired the leaking roof. I wasn't just paying for the house. I was preserving memories. My sister thanked me often, reminding me that Mom would be proud of us. Those words kept me going when exhaustion settled into my bones. 3 years passed like this, 36 months of trust, 36 months of silent sacrifice. I believed I was investing in family, in love, in a future that honored my mother's legacy. I had no idea that beneath my sister's gratitude was a truth she was hiding, one that would soon turn everything I gave into something she claimed was never mine at all. The day my world cracked open began like any other. I visited the house with groceries in my hands, thinking about repainting the hallway the way Mom always wanted. The sun fell gently across the front porch, and for a brief moment I felt peaceful, like all my sacrifices had finally made sense. My sister was waiting inside, arms crossed, her expression distant. She didn't offer tea. She didn't ask how I was. The air felt heavy, unfamiliar. Before I could speak, she said, "We need to talk." Those words have a way of preparing you for pain, but nothing prepared me for what followed. She told me she was planning to renovate the house and possibly rent part of it out. Confused, I reminded her that we should discuss big decisions together. That's when she looked at me cold, almost bored, and said the sentence that broke something inside me. "Mom's house is mine. I decide what happens to it." I laughed at first, thinking it was a misunderstanding. I reminded her of the payments, the sacrifices, the promise she made. My voice shook as I said, "I've been paying the mortgage for 3 years. She shrugged and replied, "You were helping, that's all." The room spun. She explained casually that the house was legally transferred into her name shortly after Mom's death. My name was never mentioned, never considered. According to her, the money I paid was no different than rent. She said it as if it were obvious, as if I were foolish for believing otherwise. Anger rushed through me, followed quickly by heartbreak. I asked her how she could do this, how she could erase 3 years of my life with a single sentence. She accused me of being dramatic, of trying to take something that was never mine. Family, she said, shouldn't keep score. I looked around the house and suddenly everything felt hostile. The walls I painted, the doors I fixed, the roof I repaired, none of it mattered. I wasn't a protector of memories anymore. I was just someone she had used. When I left that day, I didn't take anything with me. Not even the photos of Mom hanging in the hallway. My hands were empty, but my chest felt painfully full. Outside, I sat in my car and cried until I couldn't breathe. That was the moment I understood the truth. The deepest betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people who know exactly how much your love is worth and decide to take it anyway. The days after the betrayal passed in a blur. I stopped answering calls, stopped explaining myself to people who didn't want to understand. At night, sleep refused to come. Every memory replayed itself: my sister's voice, my mother's smile, the quiet sound of money leaving my account month after month. I felt foolish, stripped of dignity, and unbearably alone. For a while, I blamed myself. I told myself I should have known better, should have demanded paperwork, should have protected myself. But grief and love don't think logically, they trust, and I had trusted completely. Rock bottom has a strange clarity to it. One morning, I woke up exhausted from crying and realized something had shifted. I couldn't undo the past, but I could decide what happened next. I gathered every bank statement, every transfer receipt, every message where my sister thanked me for saving the house. I printed them out, stacked them neatly, and stared at the proof of my sacrifice. I met with a lawyer, my hands shaking as I told my story. For the first time, someone listened without dismissing my pain. I learned words like equitable interest and financial contribution. I learned that love didn't make me stupid. It made me human, and sometimes humanity deserved justice. At the same time, I began rebuilding my life. I took extra shifts at work, not out of desperation, but determination. I started saying no to people who drained me and yes to myself. Slowly, the weight in my chest began to lift. Pain didn't disappear, but it transformed, it sharpened me. Meanwhile, my sister grew careless. She assumed my silence meant surrender. She posted photos online of the house renovations, boasting about her inheritance. Each post fueled me, not with rage, but resolve. She had underestimated me, and that was her greatest mistake. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized myself. The broken person I'd been was gone. In their place stood someone stronger, quieter, and awake. I wasn't seeking revenge driven by anger. I wanted fairness, I wanted truth, and I wanted my dignity back. I sent one final message to my sister. We need to talk properly. No accusations. No begging, just calm certainty. As I hit send, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: control. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for sure: I would never again allow my love to be used as a weapon against me. When my sister finally agreed to meet, she walked in with the confidence of someone who believed the story was already over. She smiled politely, the same smile she used when she thought she had won. I let her talk first. I listened as she explained her plans for the house, her future, her comfort. Then, calmly, I placed a thick folder on the table between us. Inside were 3 years of proof bank transfers, receipts, messages, and timestamps. I watched her expression change as she flipped through the pages. For the first time, silence worked in my favor. I explained, without raising my voice, that I had consulted a lawyer, and that my financial contributions gave me a legal claim. I wasn't asking for the house. I was asking for accountability. She accused me of betrayal, of turning family into a courtroom issue. I reminded her that she was the one who changed love into ownership. All I had done was refuse to disappear quietly. The meeting ended without shouting, but the balance of power had shifted. Weeks later, reality caught up with her. The mortgage she once shared no longer felt manageable alone. Legal notices arrived. The house she treated as a trophy became a burden. She reached out again, this time without arrogance. She offered a settlement repayment of what I had given, plus interest. It wasn't an apology, but it was justice. I accepted, not because I needed the money, but because I needed closure. When the final transfer hit my account, I didn't feel joy. I felt peace. The weight I had carried for 3 years finally lifted. I drove past my mother's house one last time. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I realized I no longer needed that place to feel close to her. My mother lived in my integrity, in the way I chose strength over bitterness. My sister kept the house, but she lost something far more valuable: my trust. I walked away with my dignity intact and my future in my own hands. Revenge didn't come through destruction or cruelty. It came through truth, patience, and self-respect. Some people think winning means taking everything. I learned that real victory is knowing when to let go. She kept the house, I kept my soul, and for the first time since my mother passed, I felt free.